Greetings, greetings. Sending you all some warm, positive vibrations. So, I wanted to come in this morning just to share something that is on my mind. On my mind. Let's see how first you edit these settings here. Yeah, so hopefully you have some water in in a wine glass or a goblet or a nice teacup. Let's see, how do you do this? Oh, here we go. Yes, hopefully you have some water in a wine glass or something. I just wanted to come in and just touch it on something this morning I thought was could be very beneficial to folks. So I've been thinking in the quiet of the early day just about your digital footprint. And before we even get to the digital footprint, I hold in my mind's eye quite often young people. And for me, when I see young people, uh, I see myself and I see the other adults around me. And I often contemplate with observing so much of the damage or the trauma experienced by so many adults and observing the patterns. I'm a pattern observer. Most women are because our bodies are tuned into the cycles if we're in alignment. So when I look at the damage or the things that come up quite often with friends, clients, colleagues, just the human beings, my peers. I'm listening and I'm listening for the patterns of like I always wonder what happened with this person's mom or dad or parent, or you look to see the patterns of people's parents not present or folks that have been provided for with lots of material things, yet parents not emotionally available. Now, in me contemplating this, the goal is not, my goal usually is to be effective. I have found that more useful, um, something I can leverage more than just beating somebody down or making somebody right and wrong. My goal is to be more effective across the board. That's from my fitness to my communication skills with my offspring. The goal is to be effective, right? To have harmonious communications with folks that make me feel better, leave the other party feeling better. Hopefully, when we're engaging with folks, we're left more enriched. And in particular, I pay attention to whether I'm motivated to get into action around the things that I say are important to me, my core values, things that I have recognized that make me feel good, that I want to experience before I put down my human suit. Every human being right now, human being, is going to lay down their human suit. So in any event, I reverse engineer. I just think I work backwards and I wonder what would have happened or what would need to have happened for this person's parents to have been more emotionally available or set up to be able to maneuver and overcome and thrive in whatever situation they're put in. So, the digital footprint. And what gets me to thinking about this in particular is young women. I see it with young men also. But the digital footprint, I look at some of the things I see online, and I'm not going to sit here as an adult holier than thou and say that I wasn't a young person. And when you're younger and more naive and desperate, you do things out of naivete or to show or to prove a point. And when I look at young people, sometimes I see the decision-making process is, rather than make it right or wrong, is not well informed, right? If we're objective without making people wrong, it's not well informed and it is not thinking long term. It's not thinking long term of some of the long term consequences. And I'll give an example. An example is, let's say there's a young person, let's say there's a young person, a young man, it could be a young woman these days too, and they make a decision to get involved with drugs, taking them or selling them. And they may be thinking, they may be in a set of like desperation, or their back is up against the wall. And they make a decision that lands them up getting a police record. So they may likely not be thinking that wherever I go, I'm going to have tremendous difficulty in this economic climate of getting any kind of employment. And I will be relegated to perhaps maybe just cleaning toilets. There's nothing wrong with cleaning toilets. Ideally, you want to open a cleaning company if that's what you want to do, and get paid top dollar, for that. However, it may relegate you and lock you into a certain kind of position. Most people may not be thinking, if I take a risk with this particular activity, with this decision, right? Let me look at the history. Let me just run the numbers. Let me look at the history. Let me look at the science, if you will, the numbers, the stats. How has this stacked up? Are the numbers in my favor? Is it worth the risk? So that's part of the immaturity, and unfortunately, and the glorification of all the music right now, in particular, unfortunately, rap music glorifies a lifestyle of fast money. And I just don't find it, other than being creative with lyrics and the lyricist, which I think is a really phenomenal talent. I just don't observe that we are challenged to really tap into creative genius, to get yourself out of a situation, to pull what I would call a capita, right? This dung beetle, this doodle beetle, pushing yourself out of a doodle situation, a dark situation, a dead greeting, out of a dead situation. So I can be a little long-winded. Let me get to the point. That when you're making these decisions, and as I look at a lot of the young women today, and mature women, but the young women, I don't think what is being contemplated is when you put a digital footprint out there, it's saved, it's archived. Jobs, a potential mate, it boxes you in, and you may not want that information or pictures of you out there. In an age where there's such a prevalence of, and I'm not going to put down so-called what did they call extracurricular activity workers, because I don't know different people's situation, particularly other countries or the economic situation. However, I will say this: if you look at patterns, most of the women, the majority of the women and the young women that enter those areas of work, if you will, usually are constantly, I can't wait till I can get out of this. I can't wait till I can get out of this. And so I'm not going to say that it's easy, but perhaps, and I get it, because we're not being supported, many of us are not being supported to be extremely creative with the different ways that we can generate economics. As a mature woman, I know I've had to be creative, and I'm not going to sit here and say I have all of the answers. However, if you look at the patterns and you look at what does not work, when your back is up against the wall and you're in a stressful situation, you may be thinking, well, this is the available choices I have in terms of education, how much this costs, the likelihood of what I'm going to be paid per hour. It's just not challenging us, and perhaps we're not challenging ourselves or developing the muscle to be really creative. But I can say this: most people in certain professions, they are constantly like, I can't wait till I get out of this. Most people that are incarcerated can't wait to get out. There's a saying, a piece of wisdom, right? And all sayings don't work for me if they don't cause you to critically think. Trouble is easy to get into and hard to get out. So I'm just thinking of young people, and perhaps with young women, because sometimes you could say all of this stuff. You could probably put a nugget in somebody's ear. But I also realize you don't have a frame of reference, right, as to the impact of the consequences. It doesn't hit you. So there's an extreme amount of cognitive dissonance amongst young people and older, mature adults, right, in terms of chronologically. But we can look around and say a lot of us are not satisfied with the results. And I don't think perhaps we're digging ourselves a lot of times in a deeper hole If you're in a hole, the last thing we want to do is dig ourselves in a deeper hole. So what would that require? That would mean that we got to get kind of quiet, not kind of, get quiet so we can go within to be creative. And usually when we go in to come up with ideas for how we can generate what I would call honorable economics, that's when issues of our esteem and confidence are going to come up. You may not have any support. However, it's an area that's not tapped. It's not tapped. The problem solving. That is something that is infinite that you can tap into. And so I get it. Many young people don't even go that route or don't have the confidence or don't see the resources because they don't have the support. Another nugget I can say to you, and it's not necessarily a doomsday, but you're on your own. You're 110% responsible for your results. Because nobody's going to pick up the results with you. If you should, and I'm going to be honest, if you should alter your life with an STD or an STI, if you make some economic decisions that leave you in debt indefinitely, these are tremendous stressors. And when you dig yourself in a hole, you try to put another kind of quick Band-Aid on it that creates more issues. So that being said, what can we do? What can we do? What do we have access to? And these things may seem overly simple. All right, I mentioned, if you have not been to this channel, welcome. This is Body-Culinary. Natural born woman, chef, personal trainer, lover of all things natural, lover of common sense, constantly looking to cultivate that. On this channel, I share my journey of radical self-acceptance, which has so many leveraged benefits, clarity being one of them, encouragement to start a garden, encouragement to restart, activate, cultivate a personal movement practice, and encouragement for peaceful consumption. And that is centered around food and substances and nutrition that nourishes, enhances your immune system, your arteries, your womb, your reproductive organs, your mood, peaceful consumption. And nugget, when you make decisions based on your core values, I find it can keep you very good, especially as a young person, especially as a woman, a young adult. It can help keep you very, very clear in your decision making so that you can discern, right, beyond a six-pack, a suit, somebody come with eloquent words or a gift of gab. It can make you really, really clear to understand who and what is communicating and what their motivation is at any given time. Very, very, very important. So that's what I share on this channel. I share a lot of this. If you got very fine Afro textured hair, I play in the kitchen and in the garden. Everything that I'm eating is what I'm putting on my face and my hair. That's what cleared up my acne and so on. And I'm very passionate about sharing some of the nuggets that there've been a lot of nuggets shared with me, but also I'm just very clear there's certain defining moments, decisions that will alter your life. So I'm not in the business of telling grown folks what to do. However, just a little bit of insight. Some of the nuggets, I still made some errors in judgment, but a lot of the nuggets that were deposited in my ear years ago served me then and serve me to this day. They help me with discernment. So I'm not necessarily falling for, right, until after damage is done. For somebody, they have rhetoric, which is on fleek these days. Rhetoric, nice sounding words, new information, somebody's outfit, their presentation, their talent. A lot of these things are blinding. And when you add to that the fact that women, men too, but it's slightly different flavor, we love attention and vanity, and it blindsides us, and it really, really affects our decision making. It's another reason why, or one of the benefits of being quote unquote naked and raw, can make you very, very clear as to how people will treat you and their genuine motivation. So it's a wonderful exercise. So that being said, clarity and discernment, they can be cultivated, especially in quiet. So here's a little something that perhaps that you can do, right? Keeping things around you, music, things that you have access to that don't necessarily cost you a lot of money. And one of them today is chime. Now, this is not my favorite chime. It's not an expensive chime. but it is pretty, right? The sound, right? Putting different things on that are reminders and that are sounds that are soothing to you. Very, very, very important. I don't think perhaps we realize that we're constantly on edge, and the anxiety. As someone that's a trainer and nutrition consultant, I realize a lot of the mindless eating is coming from we're in a constant state of anxiety. Even with all, doing rituals and burning sage, which by the way, different kinds of scents can also like, even if you don't have money for incense, a young person burning cinnamon in the house, the scents, they have a extremely calming effect. You may be, in the city, and sometimes people have complimented, oh, I wish I could live your lifestyle. I wish I could live your lifestyle. Sometimes I'm like, that mode of thinking is a setup from the start, because I could be in a hut, a New York City apartment, and I'm very clear. I will turn my living space into a sanctuary, and that's critical. It's needed. My nest is where I gain my inspiration, where I can be creative, where I go in to feed and to nourish myself. So something like chimes is a very, very, you can get them sometimes very, very inexpensively, right? And putting some plants around and decluttering and getting rid of old clothes, right? If you bring something in, letting go of something. These are things that can be extremely calming. Relaxation is very, very key. A key component of clarity, so you can listen to the divine onboard innate intelligence that is coming up for you, right? To be able to get some sleep. Many of us may not realize that we're not able to sleep. So this connection with these screens are keeping us on, keeping the anxiety, right? Which you can't see. It's a mental state. It's keeping it on. So any opportunity that you have to calm yourself is very important. And so if you reverse engineer backwards, you'll start to be able to hear, right? Your own divine onboard innate intelligence that's communicating all the time, but a lot of times we can't discern it because there's too much white noise, background noise, too much noise and anxiety coming through the screens, as well as very real and perceived fears, right? And so those are primal. It kicks in primal instincts, right? But that will lead us and drive us to distraction. So that being said, young women, just be very careful, and not just careful because it's like that doesn't hit. I invite you to, in your quiet moments, to sit and to contemplate what is the message of how you're selling yourself. You're selling something. It's as women, we're intentional when we get dressed. It's for us, but it's not just for us, because the reality is you respond to a suit, you respond to a clergy uniform. These are all different programs. We treat people better when they have makeup on and look. So we're looking to elicit, if we're honest, a certain type of response from others. And I don't think perhaps that in this age of XY or sexy, there's a distinction from that and sensual. And because you are so-called sexy, it doesn't mean you will garner respect. And respect is where your results. Respect is where your sustainability is. Respect is where your money is. Respect is likely where your emotional and mental health. And if your emotional and mental health are off, your money is likely going to be short-term money. Any money that's going to come in your hands, you're going to spend it just as quick. Your emotional and your mental state are everything. You won't be able to maintain the focus toward your life goals. So a lot of the things that we're being encouraged to get into, we're not thinking long-term, we're thinking and from a state of desperation and fear. And from a state of desperation and fear, it is likely we'll be blindsided and we will not make decisions that will secure us into the future. You may get quick money, but you cannot even conceive, one of the previous videos, 4 new STDs out, STIs, 4. And this is something intuitive that made sense to me years ago. Back in the day when they were first talking about, certain STIs, some of the major ones like so-called HIV and so on. Well, that's not so-called. But I remember they were saying you can't catch it like this and you can't catch it like that. And just intuitively, common sense, I'm like, If you're swapping body fluids, this I figured out on my own, and you're sweating on top of each other, right? And I can think of young schoolmates that had certain things, right? Different types of warts and other stuff. So I'm like, okay, if the sleeve only protects that, but you're swapping body fluids and you're rubbing and trying to maneuver in different positions, skin is rubbing off what I was like, that doesn't seem to make sense to me. I know they're saying you can't get it that way, but that's sweat and your pores, are open. So you're not being encouraged to think critically. Now, years later, now they're finally starting to say that the deep kissing, unfortunately, and I'm going to be honest, sometimes I say and contemplate if we're entering, and I saw this in a science fiction movie years ago, that we're entering a space where it's so unsafe to engage intimately, physically with people because it's just unsafe, and it's definitely not stacked in a woman's favor. If you couple that also with the knowledge, just not discussed, that you are going to enter several other phases of life, whether you have children or not, where your body is going to shift. So the decisions for all the incisions and things we're depositing into the body, not thinking long-term of the long-term effects on your vitality. The organs that we're choosing to remove, a lot of them, they are totally connected to the vitality, the physical functioning of your body. So if I never hear people question, and I'm not making anybody bad or wrong, I'm not. These are just questions of my own mind in terms of common sense and discernment. If no one is questioning where the hormones are, where they're sourcing them from, and the DNA that's in there, and I know that as a woman, there's certain things that you are going to experience in your life. Nobody's having these conversations. So after the fact, now you have young women talking about breast implant illness, right? And I can think of people that have suffered. When I say suffered beyond what you can imagine for different alterations that they've done to themselves. It's starting to come out, but it's not popularized. Then you have a whole movement of people, quote unquote, transitioning. So let me be very clear. I'm more concerned about somebody's behavior and who they show up as a human being than however they express privately and intimately. That's not really my business. I'm more concerned with how you show up as a human being. And I'm very focused, whatever your label is, on the protection of women and children and not exploiting women and children. But aside from that, there's a desperation and somebody else is writing the narrative. And I also realized at a young age, you just don't have a frame of reference. And many young people, if you do have an ear, you feel you'll be condemned if you share certain things, or folks are sharing everything online. I get it. I've made errors in judgment. So I want to make a distinction. Is usually not until you have made some decisions that cause damage to your reputation, which can affect your money. And I get it. A lot of people are making money off of putting everything online. Maybe that works for them. I don't know that, and I'm not talking about shame, because I do see some, if I look at one of an influencer who I really like, and I'll shout her out, the Trap Witch. Love her. She's not the only one, but she's somebody that was an extracurricular activity worker who has taken, and she's got so much common sense. Oh my gosh. So she's one of many lessons of not being condemning and judging. So discernment, distinction, judgment, common sense, and judgment condemning other people, right? You're not living their experience. Anybody that's telling me not to use my judgment or common sense is a red flag. However, I don't need to condemn other people. If anything, it's wise for me to take the counsel of someone that has had certain life experiences, so I don't necessarily have to go through it. As young people, and many of us as chronologically as adults, we follow the crowd. We just do. We keep pretending that we're such intelligent. We're so intelligent, we're offing the friggin' planet. We're offing the planet. Because male, female, because I just feel like it. Right? This is a mentality. This is why I said this is bigger than a diet and a recipe. How you consume, food is one thing. It's not just the food. How you consume is a mentality with no regard for where the source of the nutrition is coming from. Children don't buy groceries. no regard for the earth. That doesn't make any sense. To mess with the seeds doesn't make any sense. However, if you're coming from a position of control and to one up yourself, then it does make sense if that's your mentality. So all that from a digital footprint. I invite you to consider, someone, I've had a couple of people, and it just little old me, asked me to be on a platform. Now, this is interesting, right? Let's just say hypothetically, the Trap Witch, I'd have a conversation with her on her platform, right? Because not even though she was an extracurricular activity worker, but she's taken it somewhere else, like vision, mission. However, some of the stuff, if I just look energetically at some of the stuff I see online, like I could just look at somebody, their pants hanging off, for example, and I could see the crack in their behind. I wouldn't speak to you. No, I wouldn't. Call it what you want. Could have some other qualities about you that are great. Immediately turn off. Yes, it tells me something. Yeah, fashion doesn't trump character, common sense. If I was a child or I had someone with me, I would never want to be with some. That's just me. I could never be with sometimes just a mindset. It's not even original. But to the point where I see men, their whole rump is out. Like, I find it like it's a turnoff. Again, it's telling me something about their decision-making process. It's telling me something that they're not a sharp crayon or that they're prioritizing attention. So that's not appealing to me as a grown adult woman. The way somebody approaches me online, like Facebook, turn off. Yeah, my DMs, turn off as a male. So that means to me you don't have a vetting process, right? So frame of reference. You may not have this frame of reference likely in your early teens. And this will usually cause to make some decisions that will alter your life negatively, that will set the tone for generational economic struggle. And we just don't have the wiggle room. Melanated, sun-kissed, Afro, we don't have the wiggle room. And it's time, it's like taking 10 steps back when we need to take like 20 steps forward. So I think, as it comes to me, I'm going to call this Flowah focus. That's going to be part of the series because sometimes it's just organic and just my intuitiveness. It speaks to me so clearly, which is why I'm an early riser. Flowah focus. 1 million people. I don't know how many followers, but I do know there are some younger women that come to this channel. And I do know what it's like to be in my 20s. And there are defining moments where you make a decision about opening your body and your sacred womb that portals other human beings here to other people and placing yourself in harm's way. Principle here, we do not place ourselves in harm's way. Now, you can take it, run with it, or you can leave it right here. But to place yourself in harm's way, see, there's a lot of programs. If you're going to be triggered and programmed, you might as well program and trigger yourself with some nature, with some sounds that are soothing, anything to help you get clear, right? It's like somebody offering me their vices. Don't have to condemn people, but I'll look at their results. Do they have drive? Are they energetic? Do they put themselves in harm's way? I don't have to judge them. Not for me. I don't have the wiggle room because I'm very clear on certain substances that have taken out generations of my community and other human beings as well. So thank you, but no thank you. Not that enticing as some of us have been very greedy. No thank you, because I'm so clear on that trajectory. Clarity is worth more than its weight in gold. Clarity will cut your learning curve. It will laserify your learning curve, removing distraction, still living a good quality of life, right? For example, I remember when I knew I wanted to leave one particular profession while I still enjoyed it. I remember thinking I'm traveling around the world to go sit in other people's parks. And I remember being in Israel and watching folks on the Sabbath, sitting down and, they want to answer the phone or sitting down at the park enjoying their lunch outside. And I remember being in Paris by the Eiffel Tower and sitting in the park. And I was like, wow, I have an excellent park at home that I pay tax dollars for that I'm not using. So what did I do? I bought me some nice sneakers and I said, I vowed that I'm going to make sure that I use this park, one of my favorite parks. Prospect Park. Love Prospect Park. Put some brand new sneakers by the door, and I made sure I went to that park. Oh my gosh. I found swans in that park, waterfalls in that park. There's a whole line. There's a botanic garden. There's a carousel. There's a Mr. Rogers trolley that runs through there. Museum, cherry blossoms, like botanic garden. Oh, one of the most wonderful libraries ever, all in the same strip. And museum that has first Saturdays. Paying tax dollars for not utilizing it. Everybody's looking to go to the tropics. That's great. Don't we have some West Indian friends? So you can go safely to the tropics. So lastly, let me get up off of here, is that, and I don't want to go on too much into this topic on this particular channel, yet there's some activity that's going online that is targeting. And this is not, it's maybe may seem a bit more extreme than companies targeting to peddle products to you, but there's a lot of CULT, and I'm not going to mention it here, activity that's going on. And it's like, it's a pattern. It's not limited now to men. There's something I heard about recently that has young women CUTTING themselves, young women, and some that are mothers that are older. And so if we look at the pattern and the phenomenon, which you can see that a lot of what's targeted, it's women that, I'm just going to say it. I'm just going to say it. I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it. If this don't resonate, you can comment respectfully and leave it right here. Targeting women with low esteem, issues with their weight and their skin. And I'm going to call it. I'm just going to call it. I'm just going to call it. I'm going to call it. This is one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about living foods, creating a movement practice that you can go to for therapy, getting into the soil. Put your hands in the soil. This is me. Put your hands in the soil for therapy, your movement practice for therapy, singing for therapy. You have access to this because nobody really has it in their best interest. Your therapy. Because it's easier to peddle products to you from the cradle to the grave, from Mickey so-and-so, D's, to, just X-nay, physical, intimate relations yourself, or to you off the planet. And it's like you got to be like, your eyes got to be clogged up with mucus not to see. However, I get it. It's tapping into what's primal. It's tapping into that trauma. It's tapping into the fear of being chosen. It's tapping into the main vein. That's how your logic goes out of the window. It's how your logic, male and female, is what they come to both of. But it's tapping into the fear. It's tapping into the parenting that you missed. Many of us are going to have to reparent ourselves. Many of us likely you're going to have to pay to invest to be efficient so you can shorten your learning curve. But I can tell you, it's if you look at the energetics, not the label, if you look at the energetics of us carrying all this extra weight, physically and emotionally, that's why we're prime targets to many of us to go into alcohol, to sell drugs to your mothers, your sisters, people in your community, and rationalize it and justify it. Or to sell substances or to share toxic substances with our children because it's a coping mechanism, but it hasn't produced desired results. If anything, it's making other people's pockets fatter. It's time for us to get much more sharper and strategic. Strategy is everything. We can't afford on one level not to be fit. What you look like is just a result. It's a symptom of where your headspace is and how you're processing stress and how you're processing and making sense of all that you have experienced. So I'm going to be clear. Whether you're older, in your 50s, your 60s, your 20s, your 30s, you're a teen, you are being targeted for products from companies, from people trying to use your uterus and your womb as a garbage disposal, as a pacifier, and for males using their other parts of their orifices to unload their stress and their frustration. Stop people using each other like pacifiers. No intimacy. no respect, no sacredness for the act that brings and portals human life here. Just my thoughts today. So understand, we're casting spells. When you come on here, and there's nothing wrong with sensuality. However, giving somebody a loaded gun, many of us are walking around with a loaded gun. And the example is the trajectory is likely an STI, and people are not going to talk about it. People are not going to tell you what they have. And if you're not requiring it, if you're not requiring your intimate partner to get tested, order it off of Amazon. And just peep the reaction. Peep the reaction from people in three-piece suits on Wall Street and people that's high-end and high value. Peep the reaction when you ask for a STI test. I would say, put it in your regular budget, because that's where we're at. Folks are not moving on integrity. Put it in your budget. As well as what kind of experience. You know, I had an elder. I had one of my mentors. She said, like, being around these different elders and healers, I used to get some nuggets. I heard some stuff that I had never heard before at a young age. And so this elder said to me, she said, when you are being intimate with your partner, I will never forget, I get chilled. She said, that's the time to say your greatest prayers for yourself and your people. In particular, yourself, your prayer. So for me to be open up to prayer, let's say I'm doing all of these prayers and stuff, and I'm also eating all this food, and I'm being very intentional. But the person I'm with is not on that mindset at all. So I'm pouring, casting pearls before swine. The person has no interest. They're not interested in you. So distinction, somebody can be physically attracted to you, lay with you, deposit into you, and have no regard or interest, investment for you. You will be the loser. As well as your future generations. And the cleanup campaign of what you have to do emotionally for yourself. I'm just saying, this is just body cone over here and my little garden thoughts in my kitchen here laboratory. You don't have to pay me no mind. But I'm just saying, after years, every demographic, every culture, there's a pattern with the weight that we're seeing. It's weight. It's a symptom of where we are mentally and emotionally. Haven't seen too much, haven't heard too much, been exposed too much that we were not supposed to be exposed to. Everybody deserves ultimately to have present and pleasant parents and protection. That's what we deserve. We didn't get it. Okay. So what's up? You're going to have to reparent yourself. You're going to have to do some research yourself. But just constantly putting yourself out there. What should I do for this? What should I do for that? See, that's what makes you so vulnerable. Predators can smell at 20 miles away. When you just open, if you have no vetting process, get a vetting process yesterday. So even somebody you become enamored with, I don't care who it is, apply the vetting process to me and everybody else. So that you can discern who and what you're talking to at any given moment. So that's all I'm going to say. I'm sending you some warm, positive vibrations, inviting you to keep your thinking cap on, your thinking cap of discernment, so that you can hear. Because when somebody's stroking your ego and telling you how fine you are and complimenting you on your gifts, as a woman, you go blind and your brain shuts off. Our brains shut off. It's not hard to fool people, male and female today. It's easy. And we're moving like in a cult-like fashion, not realizing how vulnerable we're making ourselves and not really leveraging our time. We're not being very efficient and effective with our time. So I don't know it all, but I'm just sharing a couple of gems, nuggets. Hopefully they can shorten your learning curve and perhaps help you, because we have seeds, millions and billions of women that we're not going to talk about. And I don't think everything needs to be talked about online, making ourselves very vulnerable and ultimately not even securing ourselves into the future. Making decisions that are going to totally affect the quality of your relationship. A lot of the decisions are going to make you bitter. Bitter means binge. Bitter and binge go together. Heartbreak and binge go together. And ultimately, if we have to really sit, and this could potentially set you free, or you can leave it right here. When you accept 110% responsibility, even if I was naive, I made this decision. I made a decision that affected me and affected the lives of my offspring. And we're contributing to manifesting and birthing menaces to society out here, with a lack of a vetting process and a lack of a demonstration of folks that want to be parents. Many of us, I don't think, want to be parents. So this is a high cost that comes with no discernment, no vetting process. I'm just a realist. We're contributing to menaces to society and angry at the menaces to society when we're birthing them through choosing people. All they got is a six-pack. That's it. And their round rump is hanging out of their jeans. That's telling you don't have to condemn. It's telling you something about their decision-making process. You're not even getting providing and protection, but you didn't choose it because you're choosing short-term. This part of our brains that's not developed. There's no frame of reference. So this is not meant to guilt or to shame anyone. It's not saying that. Whether you're 40s, 50s, 60s, whether you had the children, whether you haven't, if you have STD, STI, I'm just saying. I'm just having a conversation. I'm just putting it out there. It would just move me on my head today as I'm looking at some beautiful young women make decisions. You're putting yourself in harm's way, and you're going to affect the offspring that is portaling here, because it is already a trajectory for these children, these small human beings, for a tiny amount of nothing has been set up for them. They don't have the support. And even if you get some Pampers and have a baby shower, what they will need and require emotionally, not just burning some sage, but mentally and emotionally is not there. And they need it actually from mature human beings that will go also beyond you. So no thorough preparation has been made for them. And constantly playing catch up. And it's like we can't catch up. So I invite you to get quiet. Get quiet and put some little tinglies on, some plants, declutter, put some nature sounds on. The quiet is critical. Lay on the floor today and do absolutely nothing. For a couple of you might do it 3 times a day. Set the timer for 2 minutes and lay on the floor and rest pose, shavasana. Let the body and the spine line up, and so you can get quiet. So it's a different channel of intelligence other than everything coming through these screens, scrambling the brain. So shout out to you all, whoever's on this live, whoever's going to watch this. This is just one woman sharing one's perspective, not necessarily the truth. If it doesn't resonate, leave it right here. I don't know everything. I do not have the only perspective. I know lots of nuggets were given to me and they have served me. They continue to serve me to this day. And there are things I wish somebody would have told me. But there's a lot that was said to me. A lot of us are just not having these conversations. So I just really feel, as I watch young people walking into like a booby trap on steroids. I used to tell some of my young folks, like, there's 1 million banana peels with your name on it. And this is not for you to move from a place of fright and fear, but objectiveness, because everything is looking to trigger your emotions and have you making decisions from emotions, particularly as a feminine presence. That's something for us to put in check, the vanity and the emotion. This is why I love sometimes just get raw with yourself. So you can put your vanity in check. It's a tool. Beauty is a tool. Shout out UGC Massive. It's a tool. But when you get it twisted like the illest nana, that's an accident. I don't even know if we can call it accident. That's a setup. That's a setup. And nobody's going to be sitting there with you with the myriad of things that are going to manifest in your reproductive organs. And then it's shame that you're going to, from yourself. It's not worth it. Respect is the minimum, but it's literally because we're not giving it to ourselves. And that's demonstrated in actions only. It is ridiculous for us to expect it from others. It's ridiculous. I invite y'all to get quiet. Create a great day on purpose. If you want some insight into what I'm doing, it's whole living foods in the hood with menus to fit your budget. Peaceful consumption, that's laid out. You can see what I've been doing all these years. Put it right there if anybody was looking. Natural Beauty, no products. If you're dealing with acne and a whole bunch of scarring that got you feeling the way, I just plunked it right there. To the folks that have inquired about the cocoon, yes, I'll be getting back to you. Spent so much time here today. Y'all create a great day on purpose. Whatever is going on because you said so, and I invite you. The quiet is a blessing. Quiet is a blessing. If folks don't love you, thank you. Get quiet. You're not missing out on anything. That FOMO, fear of missing out, you're not missing. This is an opportunity for you to go in and focus on yourself and nurture yourself. Clean your house, get some beautiful scents, lay on the floor, get quiet, get into your movement practice. That's real practical manifestation. See y'all soon.